poppin', y'all? Welcome back. This is episode number 2. We got Colorado legend right here, Black Pegasus. We're gonna dive into the legendary catalog and dive into the great things that this man's accomplished. But like I said in the previous interview, we're gonna be focusing on more about what makes the artist so great in the personal life. Forget the music. Let's talk about the person that they are at home. Let's talk about what makes that person. Let's talk about what makes the artist. So, Black Pegasus, welcome. Thank you for doing this for me, brother.
What up? Thanks for having me. Let's get it.
Let's go. All right, brother. Where are you originally from?
So Colorado was the first place I call home. However, I was born in Germany. So I was born in Germany, and like very shortly thereafter, we moved to the States because my dad was stationed in the military. So I was born on Landstuhl Air Force Base in Germany, and then we came back to the States, and we lived in Florida for a little bit. We lived in Arizona. That's where my brother was born, and then we actually went back to Germany for a little bit, and then we came back to Colorado. I think I got to Colorado when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And that was the first place. My dad retired in Colorado, so this was the first place I called home because in the military you're nomadic, you're just traveling around, and so we never had like one positional place as home. So Colorado was my first home, but I was born on an Air Force base in Germany.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Actually kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So you got to experience a lot of the world.
Yeah. And so sometimes my view of the world, like sometimes people will think I'm a little cray, but it's just different because when you travel around a lot, also in the military, this is one thing I've been unpacking recently on my YouTube channel. But when you're stateside, when you're like, let's say New York, Cali, whatever, I started to notice that people are like in New York, you have like Chinatown, you have like Black Harlem, you have like Little Havana, like it's still separated, even though we live together. But in the military, it's not like that. We all live together. It's just all races. And so growing up seeing that, I had a different perspective and still do of the potential of what America can be and should be. And I know sometimes people think I'm a little loony because sometimes I forget, like I'm like, oh, this is how America is. We're all da da da. But then even in my own town of Colorado, you see the South side is majority this demographic and the North side is majority this demographic. And sometimes I forget that. But that's what I always saw growing up in the military is the potential for what America could and should be.
All right. All right. That's actually kind of beautiful, man, because I feel like it takes a lot of perspective to be able to see the bigger picture in the world right now.
Yeah.
And we need that, looking at the bigger picture right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So how long have you been making music?
I actually recorded on a cassette tape that I just found at my dad's basement. I believe it was 1997 was the first time I recorded with a DJ, and I was in a group called FOS. So 1997 was the first time I actually picked up the mic. They hit record on like a 4-track recorder with a cassette. I rapped, we recorded it, we had a tape.
Damn. All right. That's crazy. Let's see. Who did you listen to that inspired you to start making music? Like, who was like the person, like the artist that like made you like, whoa, like that exotic sound that made you say like, man, music, I'm gonna do this.
You know what? I didn't really have a moment like music, I'm gonna do this. I started freestyling with my friends when I was probably 13 or 14. One of my homies, I think it was Dennis. It was either Dennis or Melvin, DJ or Melvin, brought over a Brother Lynch Hung record, and it was Season of the Sick. And on the B side, it was I think it's called Dead Man Walking or something like that. It was one of his biggest singles, and we would freestyle over that. And I would always mess around. My dad had this handy cam, and I still have footage. Like I found this DVD footage. But what I would do is I'd watch MTV, and then I would emulate what I see on MTV, but I'd try to do a funny version of it, right? Like for example, there's a big song by Mac 10, and back in the day that I really liked, and then I dressed up like a midget, and I was like, overdubbing his raps and stuff like that. So I kind of found myself enjoying entertainment in general because I was already making like ninja karate movies with my brother because we were really into martial arts, and then it kind of bubbled over into music Now, some of the first groups to like super inspire me is like Wu-Tang Clan was the most influential for me, but like NWA, I remember hearing that tape and I was like, I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm a big fan of like Biggie and Pac. Those are things that really just like grabbed me. But as a rapper, becoming a rapper, I just started doing it. One of my homies, he's on the podcast, Don. We were writing rhymes back and forth at work. And one time we show up to a party and Don just gets on the mic and starts freestyling and he gives me the mic. And this is the moment. It's like if it was a movie, the light shines and the mic's given to me and I'm like, what do I do? And he's just like, do what you do at work. I grabbed the mic, started rapping at a party, and I never stopped. That was the moment, you know. But it wasn't based off of like, yo, I watched this dude do it. It was like I just was doing something fun that I enjoyed, that I seen other people do. And that was the moment for me. I was just at a party and I was always like tried to stay away from the mic because it's mad nerve wracking just being in front of this group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And after Simone, Don, or back then he was MC Strife in FOS. I just remember him giving me the mic and I was like, no, I'm good. And he just like gave me the mic. And I'm like, kind of like, I gave him that look like, what do I do? He's like, do that shit you do at work. And ever since then, I never stopped.
Rocking and rolling. That's legendary, yo. So do you remember your first song that you like pen to paper? Like the first song you like put your soul into?
Kind of. This is kind of corny. So the first song I ever wrote was over LL Cool J's beat Hey Lover. And it was for this girl named Sherry Pratt. She never heard this. She doesn't know this. But in high school, she was older. I think she was 2 years above me. And I had the hugest crush on her. And I remember it's to the Hey Lover beat. And it's just Sherry, girl of my dreams. Every time I think of you, it makes me want to scream. Because your love like, and it just goes on to absolute cringe corniness. But that was the first song I really wrote. And I really wrote it about that female. So yeah. That's the first song. It's funny because I was like, oh, it's battle cries. It's this, it's that. I was like, oh, no. It's the plight of a man. We're always trying to get that one girl, or a girl or whatever it is when you're young. And that's what it was. It was to LL's Hey Lover. And it was like just a little love joint.
Man,
you know what I mean? So.
That's crazy. My first song I wrote was actually kind of very similar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like dissing the girl that I liked, and she like turned me down, so I like wrote the song to like diss her.
Yeah,
just some goofy stuff. That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
that's wild. So, how did you get your stage name? And did you have a name before Black Pegasus?
Yeah. So originally, I didn't understand how to. So I don't remember when I heard the RZA talk from Wu-Tang talk about how important your name is and it needs to have meaning and depth. And so originally my real name's Robert. So my rap name was just Rob, ROB. It was an acronym, Ridicule of Brothers. And it was supposed to conceptualize that the ridicule of other people of brothers made me stronger and the MC I was. That's what I started out with, which is like very simple and basic. But essentially what happened, my partner from the podcast, MC Strife Simone, we met at Future Call, a telemarketing company, and I was writing rhymes on my desk, and I didn't want anyone to know it was rhymes, but he used to write, and so he kind of knew what I was doing. But he just basically, when I went to break, he grabbed my rhyme paper and looked at it. I was like, "Yo, man, you're writing rhymes too," and I was just like, "Bro, why'd you look at my stuff?" Da 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 da. But in that, I was just in my senior year of high school, and I remember in Greek mythology they said something about the Pegasus, and at that time that the really whack Clash of the Titans was out, and I remember the Pegasus in that, and I just put Black Pegasus in a rap, but the way I positioned it in the rap, he was like, "Yo, man, is that you? Are you Black Pegasus?" And I was just like, "Yeah, that's me." And I just kept the name ever since. Yeah.
All right. So that kind of leads me to my next question. So, was your project Black Pegasus? You kind of mentioned you found the tape, your first tape that you made, but was your project Black Pegasus your first album? If not, what was your first project that you ever put together? And describe the creative process behind that. like mentally and just as an artist? Like, describe to me how you, like, when you look back at that, what was your thought process on it?
So my first solo efforts was my EP Black Pegasus, but then the EP transformed into a record that was kind of like just Black Pegasus, or behind the scenes it was like my album ain't done yet. It was just kind of a joke. Those were my first solo projects, but my first recordings, I was in a group with MC Strife. Like he kind of got me started rhyming, and we just rhymed together. So this is Simone is his real name, but he went by MC Strife back there. But on my podcast, that's Don Wannabe. We grew up together. So he got me into rhyming, and I just, me and him would just rhyme together. And our first project was FOS, Fusion of Syllables. We did an album together. We recorded it, I believe, in late 98 and released it right around 1999. I actually just uploaded it on digital streaming platforms, so you can actually go back and hear how we sounded. Now, the first thing I ever recorded was that tape that I just found, which was probably 97-ish, with MC Strife. But the first professional recording was in 1998-ish, and it was FOS, Fusion of Syllables. And the first songs we recorded, there were 4 songs in this session. I don't remember which one we recorded first. We recorded, it was like a 4-song session or a 2-song session, but we had this song called, do you care if I cuss on here?
You good?
All right, so one of our first songs that really took off was Jungle Breed, and then another one was called Fuck Being Average. And I remember just writing like the Fuck Being Average verse. I still remember that verse at some capacity. It's like fusion of syllables, invisible chemicals, 2 pinnacles on point like decimals. Eligible MCs get blown out, they skeletal, inevitable, lyrical flow, perpetual. So we're on some like lyrical miracle stuff. But I don't know why I remember that, but it's because it's one of my first rhymes that I really memorized and went in the studio and recorded. And yeah, Fuck Being Average was the first one. But back then, I didn't. So if you fast forward today, I learned how to write to beats. We didn't always just write to beats. Sometimes we just wrote and then tried to force it and make it fit. And you hear that in some of our earlier music. And because of the tutelage of one of our producers, Bass Jace, we learned how to write songs, and me put a lot of different things together. Because as I went forward, we started with FOS, but the crew kind of dismantled. We're all like friends, but like a lot of it had to do with addiction or trouble or this, a girl or whatever. And we split, and I just kept going. I didn't stop, and hence my solo career. But yeah, I just remember I had this green composition book that was about this big and this thick, and I would write raps, like just verses, just write verses, just try to be really lyrical. And then at one time during my battle career, I would write down ideas of punchlines in there. And that's how I would get good at battling, was I would turn on my television and let it play, and I'd freestyle about what's happening on the television. And then I would try to use my mind to pull these punchlines that I was creating from this book and kind of segue them together, which was in that day and age. Now, if I fast forward, I'm just keeping it real. That's like cheating, because that's why I went back and started freestyling now with nothing, because back then I wanted to win so bad. I would use some premeditated stuff in my brain. And so I wanted to come back to my freestyle essence and really focus on just flow state and being absolutely free. And I have no problem talking about, all that stuff. But yeah, writing process was just writing. We did write to the beats a little bit to get the rhythm, but essentially we were just in. When we started, I mean, we're writing like 31 bars. We didn't know how to write bars. Bass Jace had to teach us, like our first producer, like, hey, this is a bar. Typically they're in 16 bar structures. We put some of our first, if you listen to our first album, if you listen to the beginning, Fuck Being Average, like there's like 22 bars, 24, like there's no method to the madness because we were just learning. So yeah, that's kind of the writing process. Just write. We were trying to be poetic.
Yeah.
We were trying to be lyrical, and this is a time before Google. There was only encyclopedias and books.
True art form.
Yeah, and so we were really influenced and inspired by Wu-Tang. But I was like, how do they know all this stuff? Like they were just very
knowledgeable.
yeah, and it was because they were book smart. So some of my stuff, because my partner was actually book smart and I wasn't. So some might be me trying to be sound smart or utilize some of the experiences through spirituality or whatever in my verses. But yeah, we were really inspired. Like the thing is, it's interesting because this day and age, certain things inspire people, but there is a big conscious rap movement when we were younger, and it was right before the gangster rap era. So it's like it was just what inspired us. We were like, oh, we were
Yeah,
very influenced by that, and so that's what we took after, and that's what we did.
that's beautiful. That's actually really beautiful because I felt like when hip hop first started, that's really what it was about, is being able to put your interpretation of life and how you feel and what you experience in your existence into the music and making it match, almost like you said, forcing it onto the beat. And
Hmm.
samples, it's what makes sampling so fucking legendary,
Yeah,
is being able to slap your story onto someone else's legendary situation that they did. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
That's amazing.
I honestly, on a total another note, I don't want to distract the where we're going, but
You're
I
good, bro.
personally think the government and corporations hijacked hip hop. I Hip
I
hop was
agree.
so conscious and positive in the beginning, and so if you fast forward to see where it's gone,
They
um,
rigged it.
yeah, kind of, because what happens too is it's also you're seeing it in this day and age with the voting blocks and stuff like that. Certain things, so women buy the most, they're the biggest consumer in America, at least, and in the Western world. So they cater certain things. So like the music started like, like the music just started to change to sell it, and corporations have strategies to sell things. They see what works and then they just keep, cookie cuttering it, which
Hmm.
waters it down. But the government, you know, there's a lot of different things going on with the intelligence agencies, with things that they brought into poverty stricken neighborhoods and stuff like that. And it just doesn't, I just believe that there's more behind what we see, like all this stuff coming out with Diddy
There's
currently.
an agenda.
There's all these things that are coming to light in 2024, but me and Simone and a bunch of other people already knew these inclinations, being in and out of the industry. And obvious, anyways, I'm rambling, but it's just
I love the
interesting as we,
topic though. So
because it's like I came from this era where I saw fine women, beautiful women, they might be wearing tight clothing, hoop earrings, but they're spitting lyrics that have all this substance, and talking about kings, queens, this, that, and the other. So then we fast forward to, let's say, a Sexy Red. Some people are like, oh, you're just living in the past. But I'm just like, I think there's a balance. And I think in hip hop, the balance has been disrupted. Um, and that's just what it is. You can still find great hip hop underground, but it's very rare to find these huge commercial successes. Like you can literally name them all on one hand. It's like
yep,
J. Cole,
yep,
Kendrick, you know what I'm
yep.
saying? And it's just like,
The
you are,
realm of expression's no longer here.
yeah,
They
it's interesting. It's
it's all
just,
censored.
it's very, I don't know.
There's an agenda.
It's
That's
oversaturated with a lot of, and the thing that I tell people with music specifically, everything you put into your life is programming. Food, music, movies. But with music, a song is typically 2 to 3 minutes long. A movie is 2 hours. So you're only going to watch a movie a couple times, if that, depending on your attention span. But music, it just keeps going into your mind over and over. And that programming is very it's important. It influences. It does a lot more than people would allow it. Some people are like, oh, it's just entertainment. It's just entertainment, which it is. And some
yep,
people can make that difference and be fine.
but
But
it's
a lot of
consumption.
but a lot of younger people can't make the can't decipher these things, and it is a form of programming. So I believe that a lot of, let's say, commercial hip hop just in general has been hijacked by corporations and even government at some, because you see all these rappers coming out speaking
Yeah,
for a certain party, and then this party fails certain communities, like the
yep.
communities they're speaking to, that specific party fails that party every time.
They're using it to promote propaganda and also manipulate
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
going on in the
And
culture.
they, a lot of times it's also to promote a victim mindset,
Yep.
like so yeah, that's what it is.
They're dumbing down society, unfortunately. So I'm 100% with you on that. That's a very big topic that we definitely will probably jump back into once we get towards the end of it, because I have a few questions in that topic.
Cool.
So you kind of wrapped up my next question on that. your favorite project, man. Like your favorite project in your catalog that when you look back at creating this project, like you had fun. It was the best point in time in your life. Like you genuinely were like when you look at this, like you're like, dang, like I chuckle about this point in time in life because it was so great. Like I almost is it safe to say it would be fusion of symbols?
Fusion of
Yeah,
syllables.
syllables, my bad. Um I feel like that would be it just because the era that I was getting off of that, the way you were explaining that, just the whole brotherhood thing, the group, even with like the fallout, I felt like that's always just an era to always hold on to. So like FOS is definitely something I feel like I would put in that category. But for you, what is your favorite project in your catalog? Because you have a lot.
It's so weird, man, because you asking that question, for some reason I feel kind of sad. It's like bittersweet because every project is like your baby. But the reality is, and I don't know this yet because I have my second kid on the way, but
Congratulations.
people say there's a favorite. So
Yeah.
maybe there is. It's interesting because you say that in FOS, we dropped two albums, Fusion of Syllables and Focus on Skills. And Focus on Skills was our second album. It was really polished. And it was a really exciting time in life. I think I was just, like, I remember I couldn't get into the clubs because I wasn't 21 yet. So I couldn't even get into a lot of the clubs. They had to sneak me in to be able to perform. And then I was turning 21. The excitement, the thrill of doing something new, creating something that's never happened before. Like our first big show we did at 32 Blue, it sold out. 500 people. We were on Pulse. We tracked on Polestar with a local event. The community was so excited about what we were doing. And the girls, the fame, like all of it was new to me. And that's what makes me kind of sad because I'm like, there's something about, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I call it my mid-mic crisis. It's like your midlife crisis where you're like, when I think back, I'm like, damn, I miss that. Like I want to feel that again. But then you get new feel like when my daughter was born, that was a totally different like experience. Like and I'm like, oh, like nothing can beat that experience. But then sometimes, when you go back in your mind, you feel like an old man just sitting in the rocking chair, like, I remember in my day. And something about that question just was like, man, it's so strange because for me, a lot of the best, because it's like you're becoming a man, you're going from a boy to a man, and just all the different things that you learn in that time. And I don't know, there is something special about that time. Now, when we're talking about projects, the best FOS project was our second album, Focus on Skills. And then with my solo stuff, I don't know, they all have like a special place and did special things. I do know that I'm getting better at making music now. Like now my music's polished. Now I listen to stuff with Blitz and I won't even put it out because I know it's not where it needs to be. And then when it is where it needs to be, it typically kind of hits. But yeah, the one of the projects probably means the most to me is probably that second FOS album because there was a brotherhood back then. There's just so much going on from working with Simone, Bass Jace, Blizz, the Acumen, which is Samir from the Reminders. There was just so much going on. It was a really special time. And I think there's something about even why they make those movies about kids in high school or like in college, because there's a special thing that happens from 16 to about 23 where you're just like, I feel like most people, not everyone, because we all have different circumstances, look back and be like, those were the good old days. But I do believe the good old days are right now. I try to keep that present. Like, seeing my daughter complete new tab. Like today's the good old days. Oh my gosh! But when I look back, there's something special about that time for sure.
Damn, that's deep, bro. That's hella deep. That's awesome. Oh man, that kind of that was hella deep, man. So let's see. Um, how did you get into battle rap as like an official MC? So like when like I know we talked about when you picked the microphone up, but like when were you like, nah, like my pencil's about to be the sharpest. I'm about like anyone want it, come get it.
So that's how it kind of started. The first time I told you I grabbed the mic and I don't know if I freestyled at that party or spit a written. Regardless, it progressed into freestyling at parties. We'd go to parties and it was like, yo, we're FOS crew. So we got so popular just from freestyling at parties. People started tagging FOS. Like it was just crazy. Like we built a culture in Colorado Springs, and people don't understand this. This was in like 1997, 1998. In that time, it was corny to be from Colorado. It was mad corny. Like you go to New York, California, we'd go to freestyle and battle, and people would always act like we were like going to be like country rap. Like they just didn't get it. Now you fast forward to now, all of a sudden Colorado's cool because they legalized the green, and the process, and like Denver is like a baby California in a way. So, but that wasn't how it was when we were coming up. So we had a lot to prove. So we're always out battling. And then the people in the community, like we didn't have an identity, and we became their identity for that moment, at least in Colorado Springs. And yeah, I just started freestyling at parties. And essentially in that time, this is right before the 8 Mile era, Scribble Jam's going on. Scribble Jam is going crazy, the Rap Olympics. So the natural progression in that freestyle parties, people start battling. And battle culture was just very prevalent at that time, freestyle battle rapping over instrumentals. So we just did that at parties, and I had a hunger to try to be the best at that. So I'd always just focus on that. And then I'd enter battle competitions, and I started winning and winning. I've always been very competitive, because I've been an athlete most of my life in martial arts. I ran track at a high level. Um, I wrestled a little bit. I played soccer, a little bit of basketball, but track and martial arts. Um, I always would win all my martial arts tournaments. Um, and in track, I'd always come in first or second place in the 800 until I got to high school. And then I found some competition, but I was always like top tier. Like I placed in state like ninth, I think, with my 800. What is it when you pass the baton?
The
Relay,
dash.
relay, yeah, or like a relay, whatever. But yeah, so like I was running. I mean, I was a sophomore, I believe, and I placed in state ninth. But I was a knucklehead, and I got out of track, which I probably could have went to. I probably would have got scholarship because I would have just kept getting better. I just kept getting better. I was running a 2 minute half mile when I was in state. And I was a short guy because all the dudes are like lanky dudes, like tall, lanky dudes. I just had a lot of heart. But anyways, I was just competitive by nature. Like I've always been very competitive, and that went into battle rapping, and that's just what I did. I just focused on that, and created a lane for battle rap in Colorado. There's some people who came before me, like Dent and them, but I was really the person who took it to the national level when I went to Scribble Jam. So.
Okay, so that right there was a perfect transition to my next question. Scribble Jam, I'm assuming, is going to be the answer to this next one. What was your first, and when and where was your first battle rap? Like your first like rap battle. Like when did that take place?
So my first rap battle was in house parties. Like we were battling in house parties on street corners, like, and it was like, and
Really hip hop.
then we started throwing concerts. We threw a concert it was called the Underground. I think it's the Rabbit Hole now in Colorado Springs, but it's right on the corner of Nevada. And we would battle at all our shows. Like it would always start as a freestyle cipher, and then it would turn to a battle. Just that young, masculine energy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
A cat's clowning. So yeah. I was always battling, always battling. That was just something that just came natural. And then I started entering legit battles in Colorado, and that's where I started. I just started in Colorado. I battled in every battle in Colorado. Who's Shining? I won Who's Shining Part 1. There's a bunch of battles. And actually, I'm going to try to bring them back to life because I just found the holy grail of my career in my dad's basement. A whole box of VHS tapes, 8mm tapes. I don't even know how to transfer. Yeah, convert the 8mm tapes. I think I have to buy an 8mm camera and plug it in. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, man, I just battled. And I started battling. Pueblo had this thing. I forgot what it was called, but every weekend they had a rap battle for $350. And at this point, I got laid off my job. So I made it my job to rap battle. So because I got laid off, I was able to collect unemployment for a little bit. And then did rap battles, but I'd have to win to be able to pay my bills. So every weekend I was battling and making about 350, to $400 battle rapping. And yeah, that carried on. I went to New York, got served really bad. I went thinking, oh, I battled all these
Damn.
people in Colorado, and I got murked. And I came back home super hungry, and I just trained, and that's when I went to Scribble Jam and ended up getting second place.
All
So
right. That's some real hip hop historian stuff right there. That's
yeah,
crazy, man. Like
well,
you
well,
took the original route.
yeah.
Like that's an undeniable route right there.
Well, and what's interesting too is like I try to just keep it a buck because in Scribble Jam I battled Juice, and this was kind of my claim to fame at the time, battling MC Juice because he was the one who beat Eminem in Scribble Jam years before. So that was my claim to fame. But then I battled Rhyme Fest in the final, and the thing I didn't really put together at that time because you couldn't know, but Rhyme Fest does a ton of the ghostwriting for Kanye West. Like
Yeah.
he writes, so Kanye West's main ghostwriter is Rhymefest, but it's Rhymefest. It used to be Consequence and Sci-Hi the Prince. But I believe Rhymefest still helps him write. And so like you fast forward and see what Ye is doing still to this day. And I believe, I don't know if Rhymefest is still writing for him, which I think he is, but that's just crazy. But the one thing I do want to also always put out there is that, in those battles, I personally wasn't totally 100% freestyling because even when I beat Juice, you know, um, I had like, punchlines in my brain and I was freestyling. And the reason I did so well is because I was so good at improv, like pulling something from this moment, but then also having artillery ready with the punchlines. And that was something that I tried to front on in my youth, just to be like, I'm so good, da 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 da. But now I don't care. I'm just like, yo, this is the absolute truth. Like I did have some premeditated things, not for them specifically, but when you battle so many
Yeah.
people, this is the other thing too. When you freestyle so much, certain things just come back in your brain. So I also question what's premeditated because if I just freestyled for 4 years straight,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be things that are just fluent in my mind from that freestyle session. So there's a lot that I'm unpacking as I still freestyle on YouTube,
Yeah.
but I just want to keep it a buck for the culture because I don't want to go in there and act like, because there is a part of me that knows my potential, right? My potential as a freestyle rapper is something of like, let's say Juice or Supernatural. But in that moment beating Juice, I wasn't at my potential because in a sense, there's a part of me is like, yo, I don't want to say it's cheating because it's almost like sports where they're like everyone's on PEDs. Like I know people, like in my battle with Juice, he pulled something out of his pocket, and I felt like that was premeditated. Now I don't know if it was or not. I don't know if he'd admit to it, but I'm admitting to having premeditated punchlines
Yeah.
here and there. And there's stuff you make up on the spot, like
Yeah.
But that's just something I just wanted to just be a man about for the culture because when I came back from Scribble Jam, I was somewhat famous. Like that's when I quit. Like I didn't have to work when I came back from Scribble Jam. I went on my first little tour with Dilated Peoples, and I just never looked back. I just hustled and just stayed doing shows. Like I literally almost just toured through Colorado, and people didn't even understand how I was doing it. But it was like there's Denver, there's Fort Collins, there's Boulder, there's Springs, there's Breckenridge, there's Aspen, there's Durango. And I just literally created routes and was just opening for artists, driving them around to make money as a like touring artist. But I was only touring Colorado in that time until I elevated to regional.
Which is what makes you so legendary, bro, because you truly paved the way for every Colorado artist that's doing this shit now.
Yeah.
So, that's some real spit. And I feel like you should talk shit on that for sure, because that is definitely something that's like, I couldn't imagine fighting against the odds of that, especially with hip hop culture being so cutthroat. Like when you said that Colorado just looked at it as like country,
Yeah.
like going to like bigger cities and stuff, it's like it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting to think about it that way, because now Colorado does have that shot. And when you look back, it's like, you're one of the pioneers of that.
Yeah.
So you deserve the flowers for that. And I want to be one of the people to give them to you, man. We appreciate that, because that's some dope shit right there. It's legendary.
I appreciate it. Again, it's like it's really interesting because people just, I think they don't know, but this is before auto tune. This is before streaming platforms. We're hustling CDs. There's still magazines. We're still making the cover of magazines. We're still doing in stores at record stores. The whole landscape of the game is different now, you
Yeah.
know, and it's interesting because also production, getting beats was really hard back then, very hard. There weren't as many producers,
You had to
you
know
know.
somebody.
Yeah, now you just get on a website, you can get a beat anywhere at any time. So it was a different time. I'm not complaining. I enjoyed it, and it actually I don't know, man. I got to retain things that this generation wouldn't be able to. I don't know if that's good or bad because you guys can technically get to the destination faster if you really put your time and energy into it. But music is music. Music is not always about the best music. It's not always about the best artist. Sometimes it is. There's a sprinkle of timing and luck and opportunity that makes these people like Drake and Eminem
Hmm.
and da 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 da. Like
Yeah.
Eminem is phenomenal, right? But there's a right place, right time, right person. Like, without
Yep.
Dr. Dre, and that whole conglomerate, does Eminem just turn to like a MGK under
Yep.
like a Diddy? Do
The
you see what I'm
cards
saying?
dealt
Like
perfect. Yep.
it's so there's always a little bit of timing and luck for these people who are anomalies or outliers. But I do believe just if you love making music, you can make it. And if you're passionate and consistent enough, you can make a living off of it. So just depends on how you decide to put it together.
100%, man. The microwave route, or you got the nice and beautiful route, the scenic route. The scenic route takes longer, a lot more work. You got to be the first for a lot of things and take a
Yep.
lot of no's. But that microwave route, just as quick as it heats up, it cools off, and
Yep.
that's what everyone says in the industry right now. So when you take the route that you took, still prep, still relevant, still putting music out, still having success and seeing success. It's one of those things, dude, where it's like it's living proof of like if you take the scenic route, that is that there's no stripping you of what you've done.
Yeah.
Because when I go back and I look at your catalog and I look at everything that you've accomplished, and there's some things I can't even see because you've been in an era where internet, social media doesn't matter. You can only go back so far. So it's like, when you think about it in perspective of that, man, like that's legendary. That's more than legendary, dude. That's historic. That's
Yeah.
gonna live for time to tell. And that's why I also started this podcast because I feel like it deserves that type of light
Yeah.
to be told and also kept on record and for the world to see because Colorado is gonna have its big time just like every other big city has had. And
Sure.
I truly believe that's important, man. That's very important. So how did BKG start? How did BKG come about? Tell me about the thought process on BKG and the fruition of.
All right. So the inception of BKG was Brass Knuckle Entertainment. Um, Me and Simone, aka Don Wannabe, aka MC Strife, when we were doing the FOS thing, um, all of the crews, we were with working with Bass Jace. We're also working with this group called the Acumen. And at the time, everyone was like, "Yo, we need to start a label. What's a good name for the label?" And I remember, um, and I want to say Simone came up with the idea of Brass Knuckle Entertainment. But I remember me and him were brainstorming, and the top ideas was like Think Tank Records and Brass Knuckle Entertainment. And I was just like, Brass Knuckle Entertainment is hard. Let's run with that. And we talked to the Acumen, and I remember they were like, yo, that's pretty cool. But what happened was Simone ended up going to jail for some type of like drug or for some type of drinking related incident, wilding out. And I had to start doing solo shows. And that's when I became a solo artist, just out of necessity. I wanted to work with
Yeah.
my group and be with my crew, but it just, he was in and out of jail and not really taking it as serious at the time as I was. And essentially, I just started saying Brass Knuckle Entertainment. So I just started running with that because it gave my persona as a solo artist, like I have something backing me. I have a team, I have a crew, and it sounds hard. And I just ran with Brass Knuckle Entertainment forever. And then eventually, my brother, he goes by Trigger Man. Um, he saw that I needed help. He started becoming my hype man and traveling with me all over the country, doing shows all over Colorado. And then essentially, you know where I got the idea from? Wiz Khalifa. I
Damn.
heard Taylor Gang. I went to see
Oh
Wiz
shit.
Khalifa at the Black Sheep with Yellow Wolf when he dropped Black and Yellow. It's right before he really blew. So he's playing a venue that only holds 500 people, the Black Sheep. and I kept hearing Taylor gang, Taylor, and I was like, and now you got to fast forward. I don't know. I'm probably like 6-7 years into my career, and I'm like, we need a rebrand. And that day I left the venue, I was like, Brass Knuckle Gang. It just sounds hard. And Brass Knuckle Entertainment, I love it, but this is the new era. And so I created Brass Knuckle Gang. My brother was the first artist on it. Then it was supposed to be Mr. Biscuit, then Bobby Hook, and then even at one point Blitz with Chain Store Collective. And I was trying to run a label. I didn't know what I was doing, so it didn't run efficiently. That's why BKG is more of a business now for my promotion company, BKG Promotions LLC. But Brass Knuckle Gang was my label. And I still represent it like, yo, this is but this, like, there's no real crew anymore. Like, it's just like, you know what I mean? But it's funny because some of this stuff, I would have been scared to say like, yo, I got this idea from this person, because it's like, oh, you're biting back then. But that's where I really got the idea. I was at the concert and just gang, gang, gang. You're just like, and I just remember he had that Taylor gang,
man.
and I was like, bro, and I was like, yeah, man, Brass Knuckle Gang, that's the rebrand.
You know, I'm a firm believer that every artist, any type of influencer, has been inspired by somebody's greatness.
Absolutely.
You know, like even with hip hop, man, like look how it started. They literally took some of the greatest oldies but goodies, slapped it on a turntable, and found a part that they liked, and took the greatness of that, and they put their greatness on there, and now here we are sampling their greatness. So anyone that says that, like biting, I truly believe, like, I mean, I guess there is an extent to biting, but I feel like if you aren't inspiring the next coming up or the people around you, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying?
I'm on a new vibe because right now my reaction channel on YouTube is taking off because I'm reacting to classic rock, from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, some soul, but country and rock is really what's getting the uptick. And what I started seeing, because I'm like, why does rap get such a bad rep? And I'm listening to all this classic rock. It's very degenerative, a lot of sexual innuendos from AC/DC, from Billy Idol. I mean, you name it, from Led Zeppelin, a whole lot of love. And then the other thing is all of these classic rock groups, some of them actually stole, or you could say borrowed, from blues musicians. But the other thing is a lot of rock groups that are at the upper echelon, some of their biggest viewed joints are covers. There's no difference than a rapper sampling a song and a rock band doing a cover, in my opinion. It's very similar. There's these parallels. I think people just need to open their mind and just be like, yo, I don't like the way this sounds. That's fine. I don't like rap. I don't like the way this sounds. I don't like what they're rapping about. This is too complicated with the words. Cool. But all this, like, making it seem like it's like,
it's all the same.
Yeah, it's really interesting when people just try to boo-boo on stuff. So I try to be very open-minded when I approach my channel. That's why I'm listening to rock and country, and I'm hearing the gangster in country. I'm hearing the craziness in rock, which is a good thing. Like, I'm like, yo, I really like this. I enjoy this. And I was closed-minded when I was young. I've never listened to rock or country like that. And that's why my channel's explosive, because I'm finding these things that I actually truthfully really enjoy. So,
all right, that's cool. That's really cool. And honestly, man, I feel like that was a perfect stamp on the whole situation too, because everything is by influence, I feel like. So how did Mount Olympus Recording Studios come about? So I'd imagine, since you started BKG Entertainment, obviously most artists that take that step, they're like, I need my own studio. So, like, how did Mount Olympus Recording Studios come to fruition for you?
So I was recording with Blizz, not Blitz. He's my partner. I mean, Bass Jace was my first producer and engineer, and Blizz was my second. But me and Blizz linked up very early in the game when he saw my potential and was really rooting for me. So on my first album, Black Pegasus, he actually produced, like, I think like 5 or 6 tracks from that, and Bass Jace produced a good amount as well. But we recorded a lot of that record with Bass Jace. But me and Blizz just believed in what I was doing. We actually had an apartment together, and he helped me get sponsorships, a bunch of different types of stuff. And so that's where I was recording originally. But as time passes, because I think I'm at my 25th year. Let me look at this real quick. Sorry. I'm at like my 25th year in hip hop. And when you start getting to that 15th year, it's just like, yo, we've been doing this a while, you know, type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And Blizz was never like that. He always believed in what I was doing. However, his recording studio, that was his business, you know, and he was always recording me for free. Then he even taught me how to use the equipment so I could record myself and then he could mix and master it. But essentially, you know, we start having kids. There's just a lot of different things going on, and it's just harder to get me in to record, you know, for the
Yeah.
schedule. And I started to make a good amount of money throwing concerts. And because of that, I was able to invest in putting together a recording studio. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. I was like, let me put together a recording studio so I can have access when I need it. And I wanted it to be high end. So I put the money and bought the best equipment I could afford at the time. And then as I started recording, you know, the space costs money, this, that, and the other. And there were people who was like, where do you record? And I was like, oh, I have my own studio. And, you know, I always just started off with a homie, you know, I think he goes by Lord Young Wavy now, but it was Greedy back then. And he's like, yo, I kind of understand how to work Logic. And he was recording me. And then it's just, you know, growth. Um, but essentially the studio was birthed out of necessity. And then, you know, people started asking, where am I recording? I was like, I record here. He's like, it sounds pretty good. You know, is it open to public? And I was like, you know what? I was like, let's open this thing up to public. Me and uh, uh, Greedy or Lord Young Wavy at the time just, you know, came up with a deal. And I've just been learning since then. I think after that, we had Li, or he goes by Verse now. He was an engineer here. And then Mozark was in here working a little bit. And then after that, we had Blitz, and Blitz was kind of like the staple that really fit and stuck here at the studio. So yeah, but out of necessity, this studio was birthed.
All right. So the birth of Mount Olympus, man. That's legendary. What was your first show? Because this kind of ties hand in hand with both of these questions. You said that you got made enough money off of shows to make the studio. So what was your first show that you hosted? That you hosted as like the promoter and host, right?
Um, I got into throwing shows at Union Station. My buddy Chris Harlow, Randy at Union Station wanted to fill a night, and Chris Harlow was like, "I can fill it. We can do an open mic night," and he locked in with Randy, and then he's like, "Rob, I need your help. Would you be down to be a part of this?" And we started the night. It was a playoff Union Station US, and we called it Us Nights, like the culture Us. And we had this open mic night. It was battling open mic, and it just went really well. And that was the first time, like on some of the first events, I was like, I'm splitting this money with him, and I'm making more than, you know, because you as an artist opening up for people, they're boo booing on us back then, but I was getting paid for shows, and now you fast forward, you got to sell tickets and do all this stuff, and that's just economy driven. But yeah, Us Nights at Union Station was the first one, and I ended up taking it over because you know Chris ended up having some like personal battles in his life that he had to take some time to face, and it was just I was just again it's just like FOS. All of a sudden, I'm like, I don't want to do this
Yeah,
by myself,
but
but
I
here
will.
I am. But it was my crash course. That was my college for becoming a promoter and a tour manager. I didn't know that, but like reading contracts and dealing with money and dealing with people's personalities, I was in that moment going to school to fast forward when I became a tour manager for Potluck and R.A. the Rugged Man and other people, and then also becoming a promoter that throws concerts now.
All right. So this leads to my next question. How did BKG and Strong Survivor start doing business together? How did you guys start collabing?
I mean, I had been throwing shows. This is what's funny. Travis from Strong Survive, he, I believe, just got out of jail or something, and he was rapping. He was just a rapper, and he was getting tickets from me. He was getting on shows as an opener and selling tickets to open. And then eventually he was just like, kind of like, F this, I'm gonna throw shows. And he started throwing shows. I don't know if his first show was like at the Oslon or whatever. Then him and Scum in Denver link up. And fast forward, they end up purchasing the Roxy Theater um, um, to lease for like 15 years. And they start running events out of there. And because of my ties with them, and I had a company called Music Empire at the time, we started throwing shows at the Roxy. Just local showcases, and just, I was throwing local shows everywhere, and then I started throwing national shows on my own. But just one day, someone did Travis dirty with a bigger show, because Travis had been throwing big shows. I believe it was a Rittz show, and they just weren't on point. And he gave me the Rittz show in Colorado Springs to throw, and I threw it. It did great, and me and him started doing business. He would alley oop me. He'd bring shows to Denver, and then alley oop me the shows to Springs. I would run and do all the events in Springs on my own by myself, and we did this for years. Then the pandemic hits in 2020. They shut down everything. I had the foresight to not shut down and throw concerts during the pandemic. And that's when me and him started working together in this market, because he couldn't work in the Denver market anymore, because Denver was shut down longer. We have a right-leaning mayor in Colorado Springs, and that's why we had a little more openness, not much, but a little bit to work with, where we were able to throw events and make it happen. So long story short, we started working like super tight together in that niche, and then it's just like a process, like relationships, they just take time, and it was just
Mhm.
like a process like that. That was kind of a just skimming through the whole process, but that's kind of how it all went down.
So that's the way the cookie crumbled on that one. That's what's up. So, what has been the most memorable show that you have hosted? Like, what would you say is like the most memorable show? Like the one where you like when you were there, being present, it was just a really good memory for you. Like meeting the artists, just smooth. It ran smooth. Like, what would be like one of those like shows that when you really think about it, you was like, damn, that was actually a really dope show. Like, I wish they went more like this.
I think we had a few. I think the one that's going to stand out the most to me was 2020 happened. The world was shut down. Everyone was scared to reopen. And in 2021, we threw a huge outdoor show with Chris Webby. And at this time, Chris Webby is big, but this show performed even more than it should have, in a sense, because like typically a Chris Webby show is probably about 1,000 people outdoors, or it could be 1,200, give or take. But this one was getting close to like 1,600 people, and I just felt the most proud of it, because that was my way of flipping off the establishment and all these people who lied to us about um, what was going on in 2020, how it was playing out, etc. So not only were we able to throw an epic event, it was with an epic artist, it was with an epic crowd. People traveled from all over the country to see this show because they were fed up with what was going on. And I think that even though people won't give me the credit for it, because I was the one who really had the idea of this first comeback show exactly the way it was. Let's do it outdoors, let's do this, let's do that. Um, but in reality, it also set the precursor. Like, people are going to go back and look, and I don't care if I get the credit or not, but I did throw concerts from June 2020, and I never stopped. And I was one of the only people who did that, and I got a lot of backlash from that. A lot of people ostracized me from the industry in Colorado still to this day because of my stance. But now that we're in 2024, you could look back and say I made the right decision. And this is also why I'm ahead of the curve economically, because while everyone stopped working, I kept working and took the risk. And without big risk, there's no reward. So there's a lot there, but that one stood out the most to me, just thinking of it. I had a personal show where I released my Black Fumes album, and that was like
Legendary.
for me to perform at my own show and it be that popping at the time it popped. That was really big for me too. And then the Chris Webby one, just because it was so big, and I think it set the precedent in Colorado to people be like, because I noticed a lot of local rappers started throwing concerts after that.
Yep.
They saw what I did for a year, and they're like, dude, why are we waiting for the government to tell us we can
Yep.
do this? Like, it's nothing's happening,
You birthed a, I don't want to put any names out, but right now on social media, there's a few brands out there that I can definitely say you birthed
Mhm.
throughout that pandemic situation, copying the exact blueprint that you did.
Sure, sure.
So that is most definitely, yeah, you definitely changed the game with that, and one of those things definitely talking shit on because everyone was scared throughout the pandemic
Yeah,
to do anything. And I remember the pandemic shows. Like that was my first show I ever did.
yeah.
Me and Dean's first show was one of those shows, was during the pandemic. And That's crazy to look back on that when you look at how much of a stance that was. Because I remember you're like, bro, I'm getting heat for doing this, and
Yeah.
it's like, it's wild to think about. But you know what? I'm a true believer, and I believe in that. As a man, you got to stand on what you believe in and forget what everyone else is talking about. So
Yeah.
coming back to fruition, like I said, full circle. That's some legendary shit, man. That's
Yep.
dope. That's some stand up shit. So all right. So this next one, this one's gonna. I feel like this song really kind of. I love listening to music and getting a vibe off of where someone was in life. That's the most beautiful thing about music for me,
Mhm.
and it's what makes me love music so much. This question is this question goes to the more emotional side. Describe what life was like when you made your song Night to Morning.
Um, you know, me and my wife had lost two children and stillborns. So, some people mistake that for a miscarriage, but is fully developed baby, but they're just not enough to live. Both of them were like at 6.5 months. And so we were really didn't even know if we could have kids. And I wrote this song Night to Morning because my wife was pregnant and we were getting closer. We passed that 6 month mark and we are getting close to the birth of my daughter, Alinea, who, is our rainbow child in the sense of not all the stuff you hear today. Rainbows come after the storm. And so that's what it signifies. But yeah, that's, and I wrote it to try to put into the intention into the universe and my programming that everything's going to be okay and our daughter's going to come here and get here fine. And that's how I wrote that. And I wanted to be very special because obvious that's my first born in the sense of it wasn't my firstborn when it comes to like the stillborns, but our first living child that we're getting to raise. And so I just, I was very self-aware and conscious of what I wanted to happen and try to work through it. And that's where that song, emanated from, was like trying to put the intention out there, even though we had been through such dark times with our first two stillborns. Um, trying to find, I find light in the darkness from music, and creation in general. So that's what I did there.
That's beautiful, man. When I listen to that song, dude, I listen to it a couple times because I can genuinely feel your emotions in that.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those songs. It's like it's very like that. That was some heartfelt stuff right there, man. Like
Yeah.
that was beautiful song, and I felt like I really wanted you to describe just how your what you, where your mind was with that. So I appreciate you being open to be able to discuss that one because I figured that would be a very touchy subject. How did fatherhood change your life? With that being said, leading into that, how did fatherhood change Black Pegasus? How did that form you to the man you are today?
So fatherhood changed everything. And I believe there's a part of human development that happens from having a child. I didn't understand it. I was a lot more selfish before I had a child. Even when I was married, still you're less selfish, but when you have a child, and I still have moments, but you're just less selfish. And it's just a part of human development. I can't explain totally because you really do. The way you see everything changes. I know sometimes people get triggered at even like my politics online, but I'm not looking at things like a young man who can go out in the streets and protest. I'm like, yo, how do we make this world better for my child? And when I see the way certain things are going, I'm like, this is blatantly obvious. This is not going to help things for the future. So like, um, that's what it's that I know people think certain things about me, especially after 2020. But people have to remember I had my child in 2018 and, 2020 when you showed up to a park and there was spray paint on the ground saying you're not allowed, kids aren't allowed to play at the park, and there's yellow hazard tape all over the park. Um, as a man, I had to fight against that. I had to see the lies early and be able to try to bring the truth to people. I had to be the one who wasn't scared to cut down the tape at the park and let kids play, even though all the other parents didn't. So for me, it just tapped into my spider senses. and the superpowers of, you have to be there to protect and provide for your family. And it just it accelerated those things. And so when people wonder why I think the way I think or act the way I act, well, I was brought up pretty traditional, and I saw certain things. And then having kids, that's what it's about. It's not really about me anymore. Certain things you do for yourself, we're all selfish at some capacity, but yeah, that it's really changed me at that fundamental level of just being like, yo, this is about my kids. So the way I move and shake, I try to have them in mind, you know, most of the time, if I'm operating in the right headspace.
Looking back, how does it feel to reflect on your projects like Black Pegasus, Knuckle Up, Fuck Your Radio, and The Black Mexican? So many legendary features, man, with the catalog. Like you got Immortal Technique, Tech Nine, Stevie Stone, Dizzy Wright, Chris Calico, Mad Child. The list goes on. Tell me, how does it feel to have such a legendary story to be able to tell, and you're living to tell it? You get to look at the camera right now and say, you know what, I did that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like the person below me, you can do this shit, to the person that's young, going through the midlife crisis, or whatever the case may be. How does it feel to sit there right now and say, "Fucking Black Pegasus, I did it."
It feels good. And what's really cool about the music, sometimes I'll listen to the old stuff and be like, this is cringe or this is really good. But regardless, it's a time capsule. My music got a chance to let you see where I was at in those moments, creatively, artistically, my voice, my youth, saying things that, like, and you got to also think I'm from the era of like literally the end of the 90s. So like when you fast forward to today, I'm just going to keep it a buck. There was a bunch of gay bashing in rap music in my era. And, I wasn't abstained from that either. So you grow, you learn, you know what I'm saying? And it's really interesting to see how certain things have changed. But my music is a time capsule to see where I was at in those moments. And I wouldn't utilize my music to hold certain things against me. I would actually utilize my music to look at the growth, just like America. Like people get so triggered and say, America is this racist country and da 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 da. And I challenge people to look at America's inception and to where we're at now and look at the growth instead of trying to demonize it. And that's how I look at my rap career. Because you can go look at my stuff and be like, he was corny, he was this, he said that. Or you can look at it and be like, this is actually really good, especially for the time. But look at where he's at now. So it's just all perception. People are going to perceive things the way they want it. It's a time capsule. And I'm proud of my body of work. And, I'll go back and look at it and laugh and cringe. And, it's like I have two daughters to raise. And if you heard some of the things I was saying on Yo Mama's Pimp, that's an album I wrote, you guys. Yo Mama's Pimp. Sheesh. I got to try to explain that to my kids. Hey, but this is life. And again, I'm not going to run from these things. And I think it's good to be able to have open conversations with your family and just people in general. So that's what I do.
Right on, man. You're a legend, bro. That's one thing I want to say with that question. To top that question, you're definitely a legend,
Thank
bro.
you.
Looking back at it,
Appreciate you.
um, how has your recent success with your podcast been, and describe the process of getting into the content realm?
It's been good. We started out, doing culture war, political stuff, and then it's my channel's kind of turned into a reaction channel that's going off the rails. I always see myself as an entertainer, and I want to make people feel good or feel something. So that's really it, man. Like I get in front of that camera, I try to have a good time. If if I'm checking out something a little heavy. I'm just open. I'm an open book. Like I express my emotions pretty well on camera when we're doing the podcast or the reaction stuff, and that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm actually very happy about that, and I'm very happy about the growth and change in my life because I'm not pursuing music as aggressive as I have in the past, and I'm more focused on the entertainment aspect, but it allows me to do music for the love. When I do choose to do the music, it's all just out of the passion and the love. And then with my reaction channel, that's become more of a business, but I enjoy doing it, and it's been very fruitful for my family. So I can't say anything bad about it. It's just interesting, and I'm still, essentially just getting in front of a camera seems easy to everybody, But it took hours and years of me being in front of cameras, doing music videos, doing a bunch of different things. To That's why I'm at the level I'm at on YouTube. It's not just an overnight thing. I think Kato on the track has a saying where he's like, 10 years equals overnight success. So you're seeing a lot of a culmination of me conversating with people in tour buses, all these different things. And that's what you see on camera on my channel.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna get it quick. I got 3 more questions. I'm gonna let you go because I know you gotta rock and roll. Um, if you could give, if you can give advice to any up and coming artist, like a younger version of yourself, what would it be? Or better yet, here we'll simplify the question actually, just to make it quicker. Put 2 questions in one. What would you tell the younger version of yourself? If you can go back and talk to the younger version of yourself, what would you look at that young Robert and say?
Create value for other people. There was a moment in my career, I had a bunch of people putting me in good positions. One person, Jason Schwartz, was one of the first people to put me on some of my biggest shows. And once I got on those shows, I would ask, hey, can you get me on this? It was always, can you give me something? And I never took the time to try to create value until later in my career. And what happens is when you can have an exchange of value with someone, you both become valuable, and that's when the relationship really blossoms. Now, you're going to have these people who are gems who really believe in you and just keep pushing for you. But what I like to do is create value. If you can create value in other people's lives at some capacity, relationships blossom, and relationships are everything in any industry, any from construction to entertainment. So creating value, understanding how to create value, making people feel good, like that's value in itself. So if I don't have anything like he's a baller, I can't do it. It's like, making people feel good, and and realizing that, and your relationships will last longer. And it'll just be, I can't express that enough, because anyone can make music and some untalented people blow up. But if you're creating value and solid relationships, you'll move a lot further in any direction in anything you choose to do. And it's very important to be able to communicate with people. And yeah, I struggled for a long time. I'm just starting to be able to communicate with people properly. And it's all this having to be a tour manager and dealing with different personalities, having a podcast, having a brother, having, family members, having kids. So, um, being able to communicate with people, create relationships with the most important thing for anyone on this planet is creating value. Because even in the darkest times, right, when kings are decapitating everyone, who do they keep around? They keep their chef. They keep the court jester, right? Because the court jester makes them laugh. It makes them feel a certain way. They keep the chef because he cooks, right? They take everyone out, but there's certain people who are irreplaceable. Why? Because they bring a certain value. So just make sure you're bringing value into the world, and you'll probably be able to stand the test of time. I know economically it's really hard out here, but if you can create value, you'll be fine.
All right. This comes to my final question. Comes to my final question. The podcast is called The Vision. I named it The Vision because I really wanted to dive in on what created the fruition of what you're living now and what started your vision, but also what is your current vision. So, describe to me, what is Black Pegasus' vision? To end the episode today, what is your vision for the world? What's your vision for you? What's the vision for BKG? What do you envision? What is your envision and goal from then and to now?
So my vision is with the world. The world is going to be the world, but if I can lead by example and help make the world a better place and see things differently than the propaganda that's all over, mainstream media and social media, that's going to be my vision there. And for my business, I basically want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 45. I just turned 44, so I have a lot of ground to cover, but let's put the intention out there and shoot for the stars. Um, so that's my envision economically, but business wise, I've settled into being an entertainer. At one point I wanted to be the realest rapper, the illest rapper of all time, or whatever the case may be. But I enjoy entertaining. I realize that's my calling. So even though I'm leaning into like YouTube, doing reactions, that will probably grow. We'll probably do some type of other entertainment on YouTube. I'll continue doing music. I'll continue networking with people. probably booking shows, and I'm going to lean into the things that work. I won't be doing all of those things forever. What works, works. I'd like to get into a little bit investing. I probably need some type of mentorship there. I'm kind of like a person who just has dove in and figured it out on his own, but investing in this certain climate, I definitely will need some type of tutelage and leadership. So, those are the things for me. Like, I'm a grown man. I'm trying to, you know, make a dent in society and how leave a legacy for my children. So that's my vision, um, being a good father, being a strong father, being a good martial artist, being a millionaire, um, helping change the world, bringing compassion, a lot of different things, and trying to balance them out as well as I can. We're clumsy humans, so I'm not perfect. So that's my vision.
At all. Well, that concludes our second episode.